You're right, everyone, it's Sam here. Welcome back to Season with Schumi on F1 2006. In the previous race it was a very eventful one in Australia and we finished 5th and kind of halted our comeback in the championship a little bit, but was still not that far behind Alonso in the Renault and his teammate Fisichella. So heading into this race, Imola, the team's first home race of the season. Of course, back then 2 races held in Italy. Of course, this is the San Marino Grand Prix though. And yeah, I'm a very big fan of Imola, as I've said before in my Pinnacle video that we did here a while back. And here in Q1 then, we come across the line. It was only 12th in Q1, not the best, but it was still good enough for us to get through. And yeah, there really wasn't much to say about who went out, because it's pretty much the usual suspects at the back. Into Q2 then, and yeah, we're going to skip a bit of the time then, just to use quick in this. And you can see that Webb was actually faster than the Williams here, which is a bit of a surprise. But we're going out in Q2 then, and we're not looking particularly quick at the minute, but we're on a much better lap here. And we're going to come across the line now then, and we go only 8th in the end, but yes, again it was still good enough. And look at that, Montoya and the McLaren out in Q2 then, so that was a bit of a surprise there. And yeah, might be a contender out of the way there really, because well, we've seen in the last race that McLaren looked very competitive. But yeah, into Q3 then, and yeah, you can see we haven't been showing too much promise so far, but still. And actually, because of that, I did make my fuel a little bit lighter, like for the start of the race, so I tried to do something like a bit different this time. And we'll see if going a little bit lighter pays off for us, as our first time wasn't very good. We actually made a mistake on it, which is why it's way off the pace. And yeah, we are going to improve it a little bit in this first run, where we're just trying to burn off some of this fuel across the line. And well, it was only 8th at this stage, so not really the best. You can see it later on, we were still in 8th, and our teammate was up in 4th. That was alright. We can see that Webber really put on an impressive performance in the Williams, and it was Kimi and the McLaren at the top. But it was given to the end of the session now then, we'd actually improved our time a little bit at this stage, but not by much. And 7th really wasn't where I wanted to be on the grid. And of course, with it being Ferrari's home race, well, we needed a much better qualifying than that. And yeah, I was pretty confident I could get a good time out of this. I mean, back in the day, this was always my best track. I think I may have mentioned this before, like in Pinnacle or something. But we're coming out the final couple of corners then, across the line. We'll see how quick it is. It was very quick, and it is pole position by just 0.02 of a second. What a close qualifying that is, and just ahead of Kimi Raikkonen. And it's Webber in 3rd, Alonso in 4th, our teammate in 5th. So yeah, it's not bad there. And we're going to go to the grid then and check out the full grid order then for this race. You can see there are a few sort of midfield names kind of in the mix there, with the likes of Fisichella and Montoya. So that might play into our hands then if they're getting caught up. Of course, I'm not expecting Webber to be too quick in the race, so he may hold a few people back, such as Alonso, which would be a massive help to us. But the important thing is that we get a good start, and because of course from the looks of things, it looks like Raikkonen's going to be our main rival in this race. So we are now on the grid, hoping for a good start this time. But of course, things always seem to go wrong when I try to launch, so we'll see how this goes. Then we've got the lights in Imola, and once again we're slow away. And yeah, it hasn't been the best of starts, but yeah, Raikkonen's drawing us. Webber was thinking about having a look, but we've held 2nd place then for now into turn 1. I braked a little bit early there, and I thought Webber might have had a look at me there, or maybe even hit me, but I've survived for now then, and I'm in 2nd place. Then I've only lost out to Raikkonen, but that was quite an annoying thing to happen at the start, because usually once the race gets going I'm able to usually upshift without too many problems, but it just happens when on the start, when I haven't been like pressing the button for a few minutes maybe, and yeah, it causes it to stick a bit, and that's what's making it really annoying. But yeah, it's something we'll have to deal with. I think I have managed to sort it out actually for the next race anyway, so We shouldn't have too many problems with it. We're skipping a few laps then because Raikkonen pulled away from us, and there really wasn't much to see. It was kind of a repeat of Bahrain, in fact, as we come across line at the end of 6 laps, and we've set the fast lap of the race there, so we may start closing the gap here. Then we've got it back down to only 2 seconds, so hopefully we can get moved on and maybe in this first stint of the race even. But of course, still a long way to go, so we don't want to be making too many rash moves at this stage. But yeah, heading through this Tosa this is, and we were pretty much even in the first sector. I actually thought I'd cut this bit out, but I guess not. And never mind. But yeah, going up the hill then, and you can see that, well, we were certainly closing in the first part of the lap with the Fiona chicane and then Tosa, but then in this bit he seemed to be a bit quicker, and here's that corner that I always had problems with in Pinnacle, and it seems like it's the case in every single game because it's in F1 Challenge as well, right? I have so many problems there. But into this chicane, and I've spun and I almost hit the wall there, but I've just about avoided it, and yeah, we were lucky to get away with that one, but we have lost a lot of time. Luckily we had put up quite a big gap to Weber at this stage, so it didn't cost us any positions. But yeah, I kind of just lost it on the entrance, and I hopped over that first curb, and that caused me to spin, and I'm surprised I didn't do it more times, in fact, because that really is a treacherous hairpin with those high curbs. But we come across the line a couple of laps later and once again respond with a fast lap of the race to start closing that gap back down. And now we'll get onto our pit stop lap, in fact, and I don't know what I was doing here, in fact, into the bonus chicane. I just seemed to mess up my braking completely, and then try to recover it, and I ended up spinning, and you can see I kind of started to close the gap back down, in fact, to 2.6 seconds, and then went and did that right before my pit stop. And the worst thing about it was I was lighter than Raikkonen as well, so that really wasn't a mistake I could have afforded to make. As we do come in for our pit stop now then, and it's looking like a pretty slick stop. We had a bit of problems there on the right rear again, but as I said, I think I've pretty much sorted it now from the next race onwards, so we'll see how it goes, because I tend to do a race or two in advance, so I've already done the race after this. But away we go then. We're in P5. I think not many people had pitted at this stage because I actually went a bit earlier than normal. But after the pit stop phase then, we're quite close to Raikkonen, and then right in front of us, Toro Rosso has an engine failure just as we were about to lap them, and that left oil on the track. But on the very next lap, we've actually caught up to Raikkonen quite a bit. We're only half a second behind, and through Variante di Ultra, I think that corner is, we've got a very good run this time, and we're through already, and we kind of forced them offline a little bit and we're through, but we do have to be careful of that oil on the track into this corner. I was very cautious, and Raikkonen's gone back around the outside of me, and now I've gone and spun it anyway. So once again we're pointing the wrong way for the third time already in this race, not what we needed, and that's so frustrating because I was literally going cautiously to avoid the oil, and then I ended up spinning on it anyway and losing the position. So yeah, after that then, well, there's a few laps after that I came for my second stop, once again earlier than Raikkonen. But yeah, I kind of had to try and get into a bit of a rhythm here, because I did make a lot of mistakes certainly in the first part of the race. But yeah, we have a pretty clean stop there. I mean, I could have shown all the mistakes, but I think it would have made for a pretty poor video, because there was quite a few, but my pace was kind of enough to make up for them. And we exit the pits then with half the race to go. We're in fourth, as no one around us has pitted yet. But yeah, a few laps later Raikkonen comes in then, and yeah, we actually somehow, with those quick laps we were doing, I said about we had to try and get into a rhythm. We did just that. We actually managed to leapfrog him despite coming in earlier, so that worked out very well for us. And then we had the lead, and we pretty much just had to nurse home from that stage, I guess, because, well, as long as we didn't like drop the gap to Raikkonen again, as we'll be coming for our third stop of the afternoon. And yeah, it was a pretty clean stop, just getting the fuel to the end. A bit slow on the lollipop, but we're away. It's a nice and clean stop, and we should, well, not rejoin the lead, but you know, regain the lead after the pit stops anyway, as Raikkonen is in the lead for now. Yeah, exiting the pits, and we're going to skip now to well, coming up behind the McLaren, but it's not actually Raikkonen, it's Montoya who's a lap down. And I had a flashback of Bahrain there, because I thought they were going to deploy the same dirty tactics that Renault did to give Alonso the win there. But I managed to avoid it, and Raikkonen came in on that lap anyway. So I managed to regain the lead, and not much happened after that except for Webber dive bombing me and damaging my tyre when I tried to lap him. But yeah, I didn't really. I actually couldn't bother to find that bit to put it in. But we come across the line there. It's our second win of the season, and that puts us back on form then after only 5th place in Australia. Not the most interesting race, I guess, in the end, but it was a nice battle with Raikkonen early on, and yeah, you can see we had a nice comfortable gap over him in the end. Massa only 6th in the end then, so I thought it could have been a bit better for Ferrari today, but we did take some good points off of both Alonso and Fisichella, so I'm happy with that. Webber managed to, well, he ended up a lap down, as I said, despite qualifying 3rd, and no points for Montoya then after qualifying 11th. And further down then, we saw Toyota had a pretty good start to the season actually, but yeah, double DNF today, which was really not what they needed at all. Quite a few retirements in the midfield, and that kind of allowed a few of the teams lower down to pick up decent positions, like you see the Toro Rosso up in 13th there. So yeah, it was a bit more attrition in this race. You can see there we've taken the maximum points in this race, and it's actually put Fisichella to the top of the standings then, despite not winning the race yet. You can see how close it is, only 3 points separating the top 3. And yeah, looking further down then, not much to see here, but certainly an interesting championship battle going into these into the next race at the Nürburgring, which is, well, of course, Schumacher's first race of the season. Ferrari scoring the maximum points on home turf, and that puts us back above McLaren. And yeah, not much else to say about that then. So if you've enjoyed this race, leave a like, and I'll see you next time where we'll be racing at the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. So I'll see you next time. But now I'm going to enjoy the champagne on the podium. Goodbye.